Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Part three of the digital gaming and media playground, right? So we have already had in part one, we've done by the numbers. We've talked about the financial significance and obvious of the industry, video gaming industry. We've hit on some stuff with esports, including a pretty cool video. I hope you watched it as part of that lecture. Part two is all about video game history, the history of electronic gaming, which takes its roots all the way back to mechanical gaming at the end of the 1800s. Then, of course, we had video gaming, which has really come along in the last probably 45 to 50 years here in the US and globally. And then, of course, we talked about advertising. Well, today on part three, we're going to be talking about a couple of major issues. One is video game addiction. Another one is the violence in video games. And, not to be outdone, we're also going to be talking about video game benefits. So let me call up the PowerPoint here real quick, and let's get right to it. All right. So you will you should have found this PowerPoint in the week 3 module on Canvas so that you can also take a look at that. I would also encourage you to look at and read chapter 3 in your textbook, Media and Culture, the 12th edition, right? That also has corresponding information along with what I'm talking about, some of which is in the book, some of which isn't. So I encourage you to obviously watch this lecture. Anyway, addiction and other concerns. That's kind of where we left off. We were talking about this concept of microtransactions, right? Loot boxes, etc. in part 2. So there was a financially addictive nature, of course, and parents, politicians, and the medical establishment are obviously concerned about the addictive quality of video gaming. And maybe, quite honestly, it's not just parents and politicians and the medical establishment. Maybe you have someone that you know, a sibling, a friend, whatever, that you feel like has got an unhealthy relationship with video games that kind of, splits them from human contact. But anyway, we also have many people, some of the same people, that are concerned about the violent and misogynistic game content, which we'll get to here in just a bit. But one thing I did want to inform you is that 1 in 10 kids, let me roll down on my notes here, 1 in 10 kids, this was a 2011 study of more than 3,000 3rd through 8th graders. This happened in Singapore. 1 in 10 were considered pathological gamers, meaning that their gaming addiction was jeopardizing multiple areas of their lives, including school, social, and family relations. The more the children were addicted, the more they were prone to depression, social phobias, and increased anxiety, which led to poor grades in school. These numbers are similar in the United States, China, and Germany. Again, 3,000 3rd through 8th graders, 1 in 10 were pathological gamers. By the way, gender is also a factor in game addiction, not addition. And males are more apt to be addicted than females. And of course, games are habit forming. And of course, we've talked about the fact that is true because of obviously the nature of microtransactions and whatnot. But I wanted to play a video for you real quick that I think really crystallizes what an issue video game addiction can be. And so this is actually a video called Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, Video Game Addiction. It's from an HBO series HBO periodically produces this show and looks at a number of different things across the world of sports. And in this case, they included video game addiction. So it's very 60-minute style. So I want you to take a look at it, and I'll have some thoughts when we come out after the video. Okay, so this would have been where I showed you the video, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, but I can't embed it within the actual lecture here. So you're going to have to watch it on the link that I provide. I'll make sure that I put it on the weekly tasks so you can see it. But in part 3 here, when I want to show you about video game addiction, The link will be there. It's called Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, Video Game Addiction. So make sure you watch it because you know, it's very interesting and it's part of the lecture. 15 minutes of very sobering information, right? And I don't know how much you agree with what you saw in that Real Sports video. Do you think video game addiction is a, you know, is a real thing? Do you think that there are parts of our brain that, you know, much like anything else, react the same way to, you know, to video games? Or do you think, you know, it's much ado about I wouldn't say much to do about nothing, or that it's been, so what I'm looking for, it's been glorified in this sense by this report. Would love to hear your reaction to it. I know we can't do it in real time, but certainly if you feel like you've got to, you know, talk about it, by all means, send me a note, send me an email, you know, on Canvas. I'd love to hear your opinion. So these are the kind of the sort of the elements of video game addiction, right? These are the kind of the fallout that happens from it. And anxious, and maybe this is, maybe you relate to this in a sense, right? Are you anxious or miserable when not playing? So I'm addressing the folks in the room who play a lot of video games, and you know, maybe they feel like they play, you know, quite a bit, and they're addicted. I don't want to say you're addicted to it. Maybe you are, right? So are you anxious or miserable when playing, or when not playing, I should say? Does it disrupt your sleep? So in other words, you know, have there been times when you get up in the middle of the night to play, where you stay up too late, you get up too early? How about mood changes? You know, do you find yourself getting pissed off sometimes when you're not sure why, right? Maybe that has to do with those sleep disruptions, right? Or sleep deprivation, right? I mean, I know that, you know, there's been times, particularly during the pandemic, where my own kids were, you know, like their friends were spending way too much time on Fortnite and Minecraft because they had nothing else to do, but, you know, basically just, they were doing remote learning, and they were going to bed at like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and they weren't getting up until 1 in the afternoon, or if I had to get them out of bed at like 7 or 8 in the morning for some reason, they'd only have a couple hours of sleep. It was a very nasty cycle. Do you need to play longer with more intensity to get the same kind of like rush that you get when you play? Do you avoid friends and family? Do you use video game addiction, or the video you, when you game, do you do it maybe to you know, kind of just sort of disconnect, right? You know, that can be a problem. Do you lie about time spent? Have you asked yourself recently, how much time do I spend daily playing video games? And do you downplay that? Because if you actually, you know, look in the mirror and say, you know, this is how much I actually play, it makes you feel uncomfortable. You skip meals, right? Oh, you know, yeah, I don't need to eat dinner right now, I'm too busy doing this. And then you look up, it's like 9 o'clock at night, and now you skipped a meal. How about, does it affect your does it affect work or school performance, right? Are you playing video games at the expense of maybe doing a paper for my class or another class, or maybe you should be studying for a quiz or test, and you know, there's only so much time in the day and you spent way too much time on your video games. So think about these kinds of things. I'm not judging. I'm just saying these are common aspects of video game addiction. All right, there are also other concerns, right? Violence and misogyny, right? 75% of games are family and teen friendly. 75%, that leaves 1 out of every 4 games as being not so much, right? And most games are intentionally violent. In fact, if you click on that link, basically you can see that there's a lot of games, you know, both modern and in the past, that have really kind of had a really violent kind of you know, outburst to them, or at least a theme to them, right? And much like you can earn points for scoring touchdowns and whatnot, some of these games actually earn points for violent acts. So really, you know, in fact, I don't have it queued up here, but let me see if I can throw it up on my other screen and just give you an example. Whoops. Go back here. There we go. I can go here and see that, like, for example, most violent video games of all time. Let me give you an example. You can, of course, click on this link if you're, certainly through the PowerPoint. There was a game called Postal in 1997. Basically where, someone going postal was part of the theme. Mortal Kombat, I'm sure you've heard of. I mean, you've no doubt heard of Grand Theft Auto. You've probably played it. That's gotten a lot of criticism over the years. Let's see, what else do we have here? Manhunt 2003, Rockstar Games pushed the violence in video games debate to a new level of intensity. Manhunt was Where's the Blood and Gore, Crowned Like a King. The plot, a death row inmate named James Earl Cash finds himself the star of Madman's real-life snuff film in which the only way to stay alive is to kill every gangbanger in sight. Boy, that sounds great, huh? So anyway, take a look. They have actually, it's funny, they've updated it since I've been on this website before. And a lot of these games just go back to the, essentially to 2000 and beyond. But yeah, pretty interesting. So anyway, take a look at those links because they do talk about the fact that video games can be violent. And I remember one of the more famous news stories that was out there that connected to video gaming was the Sandy Hook tragedy, where if you remember the story in Sandy Hook, I want to say 2014 now, 2015, where a guy named Adam Lanza shot up a elementary school, killing multiple kids under the age of 12. So sad, and obviously faculty. And one of the things that they, came to find out about him was that he was a loner. He was in his basement, constantly. He was playing violent video games. And, the other factor is that his mom had left, left access to, some guns in the house. And that's ultimately what he used to carry out his crime. So I don't know where you fall on the connection between violence and video games. Is there a connection? If you play a violent video game, do you have a tendency to be violent in real life? I liken that argument to the same thing you hear about in film and television, right? That if you watch a violent television show or a very, violent movie, is that going to lead to violence? And I guess my personal feeling is that because I'm someone that likes to watch television and film, I like to watch narratives that aren't your typical narratives. I feel like a pretty normal human being, but I also had parents that raised me to understand right and wrong. And as a parent, I would never stick my 6 or 7 or 8-year-old in front of a violent television show or a film, nor would I ever do it in front of a video game. So, but I have had pushback by students in the past who have said that, there's a connection. So, so I think that's an interesting, I wish we could debate this in person, but certainly I don't know where you fall on that. And if you have any strong opinion one way or the other, by all means, feel free to share that in an email to me. All right. I don't want to leave out the positives, though, right? Video game benefits, right? So here are obviously some of the ones that scientists kind of and researchers kind of point to as being sort of why video games can be good. First of all, it improves coordination. I mean, just look at the joystick now, right? I just had to do with one thing. I mean, your thumbs are doing 800 things at once, right? So of course, and you've got stuff going on the screen that's very fast, and you have to make quick decisions. And I certainly think coordination is definitely improved playing video games. I mean, I've seen it with my own kids. Improves problem solving skills, right? You're constantly, for the most part, depending on the game, you're solving problems. And I think that if you're constantly doing that, that's stimulating your brain to do so. It enhances memory. I think like anything, as you learn to master a game, you learn tendencies of the game, you learn what works and what doesn't work. And I think, you can apply that to things obviously outside of video games. You can constantly study a certain subject and you become better at it. One would say the same thing for, playing a video game, on a repeated basis. Improves attention and concentration. Yeah, I would say, certainly if you have a friend or a sibling or yourself, when you're in the throes of playing that game, I'm sure that, you know, you're kind of got tunnel vision with everything else around you. And I think that definitely falls in that category. It can be a great source of learning. You know, I mean, certainly if you're playing certain games that have, you know, I don't know, like history to it or strategy, I think it can certainly be a great source of learning. I think no question improves the brain speed. Does it enhance multitasking skills? It can. I would love to hear your opinion on that. I think maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That would be a debatable option for me right there. And does it improve social skills? Well, I think you could make the argument that if you have someone who is consistently on one of those games where you're on a headset and you're playing with other players, multiplayer games, and you're constantly communicating with one another, I would say yes, it can. But then on the, you know, the other side of it is, I mean, there's certainly been a lot of moments out there where people have said some pretty disparaging things to each other or in the course of a game, both from a misogynistic and racial sense. And so, yeah, does it improve your social skills? It certainly does. But again, each of these have sort of a you know, kind of a pro and con to it. So that is the chapter 3. Again, I had split it into 3 parts, and hopefully you've got something out of it. And again, one of my frustrations of, you know, with not being able to see you in person is that I think you probably have a lot of comments, particularly when it comes to addiction and to video game benefits. But I want, again, you know, I would definitely, if I were you, review chapter 3, review this PowerPoint, review all the links and the videos that I've actually attached with this, because they're all fair game when it comes to a quiz or a future test. So the next time I see you on YouTube will be when we talk about chapter 4, which as a preview is we're going to kind of steer away and get into sound recording and popular music. And that will start a stretch of time where we get into not just music, but we get into radio and then later television and then film. All right, guys. Well, that's it for today. We'll see you when we resume chapter 4. Bye-bye.